Hey, what's going on, guys? Back here for another weekly watch list. If you guys are new here, we go over the top 6 to 10 setups that are looking like the highest probability trades going into the week. If you guys don't know, this is a swing trading strategy based on price action. So let's jump right in. First one we have GBPJPY. I'm on the weekly time frame here, and if you guys haven't been looking at the charts, all pairs going against the Japanese yen have been extremely bullish, whether it be GBP, USD. CAD, the pairs have been extremely bullish against the Japanese yen. So if you can see, I'm on here on the weekly time frame. You can see we've just broken out of this previous really key resistance level. So I wanted to show you guys that so you guys can see we're pretty much clear air up here until this next level up here. So I'm going to remain bullish on these pairs until proven otherwise, but there is a lot of room in between here where there's really just not much key levels here. So definitely bullish going into the week on GBPJPY, and I'll go down to the 4 hour to see where we could look to get an entry in here. Zoom in a bit. So if I zoom in, you can see we've just been moving within this uptrend for quite some time. You guys can see the higher highs and higher lows that have been forming. We've just been continuing this uptrend, and so in my opinion, I'm looking to get into long positions. And so how would I do that? So I'm looking at a potential scenario where we get a retest of this previous trend line, this uptrend line that's been being respected. I'm just looking for some sort of correction to form here in order to look for long positions. So if we get some sort of bullish flag, some sort of pull down here, maybe we get something like this, maybe we get a move down here, we get a double bottom of some sort, maybe we get a inverse head and shoulders here. Maybe we get something of the sort. I'm looking for some sort of indication that this is just going to be a small pullback before the next move higher. So I'm looking for some sort of correction here. Higher time frames are bullish, so we know that we're looking for long positions. So we've established our higher time frame bias. That's extremely important when looking at top-down analysis. So we want to establish our bias on the higher time frames and then move to the lower time frames like the 4 hour and look for potential long opportunities. So all I'm doing is forecasting something of the sort to happen here where we can look into long positions. And it's possible that we could continue moving up before then making some sort of bullish correction. So I am looking for something like that as well. Ultimately, I'm just looking for some sort of correction so I can get into long positions here, because we don't want to just be entering on these impulses. You can see here, we don't want to just be entering up here. We want to wait for something clear, a better RR trade. So just looking for some sort of bullish correction here. Let's go to the next pair. We have GBP Australian dollar. I'll jump here to the daily time frame so you guys can see what's been going on. So we had this sideways movement for quite some time, and we finally broke out of this movement. And I'll show you where we ended up breaking that. It was right here. This is where we ended up breaking this sideways consolidation. We had formed this low right here, lower high, lower low, lower high, and now you can see we are moving within this downtrend. So on the daily time frame, I'm looking for short positions. So I've established my higher time frame bias. I'm on the daily time frame. I've established that we are now in this downtrend. So I want to look for potential short positions. So let's go down to the 4 hour time frame so we can see where that might take place. You guys can see we have a pretty textbook bearish impulse and then correction right here. So after a correction, we typically want to see the next impulse move down, because as we know, the market moves in stages. Corrective stages and impulse stages. So this is our corrective stage, and we want to look for potential short positions. So I am not upset, but I would have loved to get this entry right here off this 1 hour pin bar. If I zoom in here, you can see that would have been a great entry. Would have been multiple rejections here. We had a perfect 4 hour pin bar here. So this would have been a great entry, a great RR trade as well, but we didn't get that, so we want to plan the next potential setup, and I'm just looking for some sort of breakout here, some sort of breakout of this corrective structure, because we know as these corrective structures take place, if we get a breakout below, this would be a great entry to take part in the next impulse move down. Because while we don't want to be entering on the impulse, we want to be getting in on the impulse. So I hope that makes sense. We don't want to just be entering, let's say price does impulse down. We don't want to just be entering down here. We want to be entering on the breakout right here. So that's what I say when I talk about impulses. And so all I'm looking for here is a breakout of this corrective structure. So I'm hoping we get some sort of lower time frame low right here. You guys can see this low that I have, because that would give us a good place to put our stop loss. If we don't get a low and we just continue down and we just get the breakout right here, I'd probably have my stop loss a little higher just to give myself some cushion. And then in terms of a take profit, if you look at the daily time frame, there's a lot of air down here. Same thing as I went over on the last pair. There's a lot of room here before the next key level is reached. So this could be a good midterm / long-term hold, depending on how you look at things. There's a lot of room down here where there's no key levels here. You guys can see if we look back, there's no key levels until this level here. So I think this could be a good longer term trade, but ultimately just looking for a breakout here. If we do end up doing something like this and we move back up, this trade would be invalidated. So we wouldn't even be in the position anyways, but the trade setup would be invalidated because we're waiting for an entry here. But if we do something like this, that would kind of invalidate the setup, and then we could be doing probably a longer pullback, and that would still not invalidate this downtrend, because you can see even if in this example, lower lows, lower highs, lower lows, lower highs. So you can see this would still technically be a lower high. So that's possible. It's something I'm keeping in the back of my mind, but until that happens, I'll adjust and move. But ultimately, I'm just waiting for a breakout below this low and below this corrective structure. Let's go to the next one. We have NZD Canadian dollar. So this is a good looking setup as well. You can see I'm on the daily time frame here. You can see we're moving within this channel here. We had this low, this lower high, lower low, lower high. And what happened here? Price failed to make a lower low. So in a downtrend, you would want something like this, a lower high, and you'd want to make another lower low. You'd want to break this. That would be a continuation of the downtrend. And so we don't have that. And instead, price failed to make a lower low. So you can see right here, we had failed to make a lower low here. And instead, we went on and broke market structure, because we know in a downtrend like this, once we break the previous lower high, which is right here in this example, once we break this, that's a break of market structure. So that shows that we could be forming a new trend. And so that's what we have right here. We broke this market structure, and then what did we do? We created our first higher high, which is right here. So I wanted to show you guys, I always like using the brush tool because it just kind of blocks out all the noise and helps you understand what I'm showing really clearly. So same thing as I spoke up on the last one, we know that after impulses, price is likely to form a correction before the next impulse move up. So all I'm doing is forecasting some sort of bullish correction here, so I can take part in long positions. And so I'm on the daily time frame. So it could be a longer correction, but it could also be a shorter one. You can see when I go to the 4-hour time frame how large this correction looks now. It doesn't have to be this large. This is just an example. It's something I'm forecasting. It could be something like this. It could be a much smaller correction before moving up. It could be something like that. And so you just have to be mindful that I was on the daily time frame. So we want to be looking at these on the 4-hour time frame and whatnot, but this could be a larger correction. Like I said, on the daily, it could be a larger correction before moving up. We don't know what that's going to look like yet. So you just kind of have to keep in the back of your mind that we are looking for a correction, but we don't know how large that correction is going to be. So like I said, all I'm looking for here is some sort of bullish correction. After an impulse, we typically see a correction. So that's what I'm looking for here. In order to take long positions, I would just target this previous high right here. Let me go to the 1 daily. I would just target this previous high right here. If we do just continue to shoot up, because like I said, just because we understand market stages doesn't mean that this correction has to take place right here. It could end up just continuing up, and then maybe we form some sort of correction before moving higher. This impulse move is not necessarily over with. That's not what I'm saying. But in order to get into long positions, like I mentioned, we don't want to just be entering here. If we got a breakout entry right here, that would have been a good entry, because then we're taking part in the impulse move. But we don't want to be entering on these large green bullish candles unless we get some sort of correction. Maybe it's on the 1 hour, the 4 hour, but we want to wait for some sort of correction so we can get into the next impulse move. So just looking for some sort of correction to form here before moving higher. But higher time frames on the daily, we understand that market structure has changed, failed to make a lower low, broke market structure, broke out of this channel right here as well. So multiple confluences here, and then a strong bullish impulse move up. And if you look at the weekly as well, the weekly candle closed very bullish. So there's, a ton of confluences here that point to a bullish bias. So all I'm doing is I want to take part in this bullish move now that we've established that bias. I just need to wait for a lower time frame correction. So we'll go on to the next one. We have NZD Swiss franc. I'll go here to the weekly just so you guys can see where we've been at and what's been happening. So I'm zoomed out really far on the weekly so you guys can see we've been moving within this downtrend for quite some time. You guys can see we've had these lower lows, lower highs, lower lows, lower highs, lower lows, lower highs, etc. And this was our previous lower high. And then you can see the bears couldn't keep moving down. You guys can see what we've been doing here is we've just been continuing moving down, but the bears could not continue pushing down past this level. And instead we moved sideways. So after we had moved sideways for some time, it looks like the bulls have started gaining steam and we have broken market structure right here. Same thing as I spoke of on the last time. We're in a downtrend. If we break the previous lower high right here, which is right here, that's an indication that the trend could be shifting. And I'm not saying that this whole weekly downtrend is just going to start moving up within this huge uptrend and we're just going to start forming a bullish uptrend on the weekly. That's not what I'm saying. But in the short term, we could get a nice move to the upside somewhere up in here. So I am looking for long positions here. You guys can see the weekly market structure has been invalidated. You guys can see this weekly candle has closed very bullish. So same thing on the last pair. Because we've had this super strong impulse, this is not where we want to be entering. We don't want to be entering up here on this impulse. And sure, price could continue higher before the next correction, but this isn't give us the best quality trade right here. If you took this trade, where would you even put your stop loss? I don't even know where you would put it. Let me try to grab my long position tool here. If you took a long position here, where would you put your stop loss? Maybe below here, 114 pip stop loss. I mean, even if you target up here for a 2R, that's 250 pips. It just doesn't seem like a good risk to reward here when we could wait for some sort of correction. And then if we get some sort of correction like this, maybe we get a breakout here, stop loss below this low. Look at how much my RR changes here. So all I'm doing is I'm looking for a lower time frame correction. I am on the daily, so this could take place much smaller. You guys can see this example. It doesn't have to be this large. It could be a much smaller one. It could be something like this before moving up. But all I'm doing is I'm explaining that I'm looking for a lower time frame correction to take place, possibly on the 4 hour, could be on the daily, but I'm looking for some sort of correction to get into these long positions because we don't want to be entering on these impulses unless we got a breakout entry, but we didn't. So we're waiting for a lower time frame correction here. Higher time frames, we've established that we've broken market structure, so we have higher time frame bias, which is bullish. The weekly candle closed extremely strong. All we're doing now is waiting for correction. So I'm just kind of building up my case in order to look for long positions. I'm not going into it with the bias saying, oh, I'm going to look for long positions because this and that. I'm letting the market show me what it thinks I should do. And based on market structure principles, breaking market structure, strong impulse, strong weekly candle close, I'm just kind of putting the pieces together to form my bias. So that's all I'm doing there. And I'm just waiting for some sort of lower time frame correction to form somewhere in here, most likely. So we'll go to the next pair. Australian dollar, Swiss franc, very similar setup. I won't go over this too long because it's almost identical to the last pair, NZDCHF. Same exact thing. I'm on the daily time frame zoomed out here so you guys can see we have this downtrend that's been forming. Lower lows, lower highs, same thing. We couldn't break this previous lower low and instead we moved sideways. And after that, we had broken market structure here. So it shows me that the trend could be changing, at least in the short to midterm. So same exact thing. We have this break of market structure. We have this impulse that's formed here. The weekly is closed very bullish. And so I'm just waiting for a lower time frame correction here. Same thing. So a lot of these setups aren't just like, hey, right on Monday, this setup's going to be good. You just got to get in on this breakout. A lot of these setups might not play out until Wednesday, Thursday, Tuesday. So because these could be larger corrections, but ultimately by preparing over the weekend, I'm able to get myself organized to a point to where when these setups do take place, if they do, I'm ready to go because I've already forecasted them. I already know that higher time frame bias is bullish. All I'm doing is waiting for some sort of correction. So when the correction arises, I'm ready to go, ready to take the trade. So a lot of these setups aren't just like, hey, right on Monday, we're ready to go, ready to take this setup and go long. I think the only setup that looked like it could be that was GBP Australian dollar. This setup could be, very soon if we get a breakout below this. But other than that, a lot of them are just forecasting potential corrections to form. And that's oftentimes a lot of what happens. But it gets us organized, keeps us ready to go. So Australian chef is pretty much the same thing as NZDCHF, so don't need to go over that too much. Next one, we have GBPJPY. I'm going to zoom in here to the 4 hour. And we actually discussed this 2 weeks ago in our video. I had mentioned going short term. I think we had a trade that played out right here. So I took a short, took it down here. And I did mention though, when we were, when we were right here, I had forecasted this. You can go back and look at my last YouTube video. We had forecasted that we could be looking for a potential short position in the short term before potentially moving higher, because we have this sort of inverse head and shoulders that looks like it could be forming. So we had forecasted this bullish move well in advance over 2 weeks ago. It didn't pull down as far as I thought it might. I thought it might pull down somewhere down here before moving up, but we didn't get that. We ended up stopping here, but we had forecasted this bullish scenario weeks ago, which is cool to see that we had forecasted this so far in advance. So let me take this replay off, show you guys where we're at right now. So we had broken out of this this channel here. You guys can see this channel that we broke out of. We had a strong impulse move to the upside, and all I'm doing is waiting for the same thing, just waiting for some sort of correction to form. So you guys can see this sort of inverse head and shoulders that's formed here. We have a breakout of this channel. We have a impulse move up. So now I'm just waiting for the correction. And if I put it on the line chart, just so you guys can see, this looks pretty textbook. Impulse, correction, impulse. So what am I doing next? Waiting for the next impulse before the move higher. So higher time frames, I've established my bias. I understand the higher time frames are bullish right now. On the daily time frame, or on the 4 hour, excuse me, we're looking bullish. All I'm doing is waiting for a potential correction. And if we do end up just moving straight back up here, this setup would, we probably wouldn't get a good entry, because this is our key level here and we don't want to be entering right at this key level. So if we do end up just moving up higher, the setup would be invalidated, but ultimately I'm looking for some sort of correction. And as I've said multiple times now, I'll keep reiterating it, these corrections don't have to play out that large. They could be a small type flag right here to where we get a bullish correction. There's multiple ways it can play out, but that's why it's important to understand different patterns. So if you understand different patterns, you understand how to visualize them, you know that these can take place in a multitude of different ways. So ultimately looking for some sort of correction to form here before taking a potential long position to this previous high. Okay, let's go over Australian dollar, US dollar. This is an interesting one. I'll go to the daily. So you guys can see if I zoom out, we've been within this triangle, this pattern that's been respected very well. And if I go down here to the 4 hour time frame, you guys can see this smaller uptrend that we've been in for quite a while. You guys can see we've just been moving higher and higher. So I am forecasting potential rejection off of this level. This is the kind of the key level that I'm watching for. As you can see, this is our higher time frame trend line. So I'd be looking for some sort of position where we can get a reversal pattern here. And it might not play out like this. This is just my forecast. But I am looking for potential short positions at this level. So I understand that we could have a little bit of ways to go. Maybe we form some sort of double top here before breaking lower. We get a break of trend line, we get a double top. That would also be a good scenario. So there's different ways that this can play out, but ultimately I'm waiting to see what happens at this level, because this is our higher time frame outer trend line that's been respected very well. So I'm just going to wait to see what happens here. What happens, maybe we get some sort of head and shoulders. All I'm doing is waiting to see what happens at this outer structure of this key level here. If we just continue up and we break through it, then then it might be a different scenario and we could be pushing higher. But this is the key level I'm watching, because if I go to the weekly time frame, you guys can see this is the structure that we're within. So this is a key level that I'm watching. And so we kind of just have to see how price is going to approach this level. And we talk about this a lot in the advanced course, that we want to understand, how is price approaching key levels? Is it approaching impulsively, or is it approaching correctively? That's a very big determination on what to look for at key levels like this outer trend line. So I am just waiting to see kind of what happens at this key level, but I think it could present a good opportunity if we get some sort of rejection here, maybe some sort of rising wedge pattern, because I do think that US dollar has a little bit more room down to go before potentially reversing. So the little bit of room down for US dollar and DXY could push Australian dollar to this high right here. So ultimately looking for potential short positions, it'd probably be later on in the week that we get this set up, if we do. But ultimately that's kind of what I'm looking for there. And NZDUSD, another great setup that we caught last week, had forecasted this well in advance. You guys can see when I zoom out, we have this sort of double bottom, sort of W pattern, however you want to look at it. So I'm on the daily, so that shows me that higher time frame bias is bullish, because we have this W pattern. We also have a descending wedge that is formed, and we had broken out of that. Okay, so I have multiple things that are showing me that we're bullish right now. If we go down to the 4 hour time frame, pretty textbook movements here. We were moving within this downtrend, lower lows, lower highs. We formed a double bottom here on the smaller time frame, and we had broken market structure here. This was our previous lower high. So you guys can see we had broken this, So that means we had broken market structure, and we also had broken out of this descending wedge. So there's a ton of confluences here that are pointing to ultimately the same bias, that we are changing trend. And you can see this was our first higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low. And so I'm forecasting the next bullish move up. So what do I want to look for? I want to see a completion of this correction. And we know that these patterns often form 3 touches. So that could be a great indication for a long position here if we get it. If we continue to break up higher, we might miss this trade. But ultimately, if we can get a long position here on our 3rd touch, that would be a good indication to go long, and we would target the previous high over here. You guys can see this previous high. So that would be our target. But ultimately, pretty textbook setups that are forming here. Impulse, correction, impulse, correction. So ultimately, I'm just trying to forecast the next impulse move to the upside. This is a pretty clean setup if we can get a rejection here. So I want to see a 1-hour candlestick rejection at this level here in order to get in longs. But this would be a great RR trade. I mean, this is about 4.76 RR. This would be a really good trade. Only 100 pips, so this could be a good move. It's not like this is 500 pips up. So this could be a good move. We understand higher time frames are showing bullish bias. We understand that on the 4-hour we have broken market structure. We've broken out of this descending wedge reversal pattern. We have clear impulses and corrections. So ultimately, it's pretty clear in my opinion that we're looking for long positions if we get good confirmation here. Because just because I understand those things doesn't mean we get good confirmation. We might not get a 1-hour candlestick entry here. We just kind of have to wait and see, and hopefully if we get that confirmation, we can go long here. So I think this is the last pair, Euro Canadian dollar. If I go to the daily time frame here, you guys can see we kind of have this inverse head and shoulders that's formed here on the higher time frames, which is a bullish reversal pattern. We had broken out of this neckline here. So higher time frames, I've established my bias as bullish because we have this reversal pattern. We have broken market structure here, or we have broken out of this neckline, I should say. So we've broken out. You can see how many times we tried to push up and we couldn't, and we finally got a push up of this level. So let's go to the 4-hour time frame. And you guys can see it's EURCAD. It might look choppy, but it's been moving pretty clear in respect to market structure. You guys can see if I grab this rotating rectangle here, we've just been moving within this channel. So I want to look to take part in long positions. So how can I do that? Well, you guys can see, first off, let me just point this out as well. We can see how many higher lows we formed here. This is an indication of an uptrend. So I just want to take part in the next impulse move to the upside. So all I'm looking for here is this correction to be completed, and it's not super clear yet. This bottom trend line that I have is not a valid trend line because there's only one touch here. But I'm looking for some sort of correction to play out like this so I can get into long positions. And maybe it's something where we get something like this. Let me take this off. Maybe we get something like this. We move down a little bit and then we break up. Maybe then we can get an entry here on the breakout. So there's multiple different things that I'm looking at, but ultimately I'm just looking for a potential opportunity to get into long positions here. Higher time frames, I understand we've established our bias is bullish. I'm just looking for some sort of cleaner correction because this isn't a super clean correction right here. So ultimately I'm just waiting for some sort of correction to come in so we can look to take place in long positions. But I hope that was clear. This is my price action strategy that we teach on Instagram. Follow me over there if you like. We go over these setups every single weekend in detail. We've had really great success over the past month. Every week, these setups that we're going over play out time and time again. We've seen a lot of good feedback from you guys in terms of how you guys have used these YouTube videos to plan for your week. And so I hope this is helpful. If you guys have any questions, feel free to shoot me a DM on Instagram, shoot me a comment below. We'd love to help you guys out, but let's have a good week next week.